Hello, welcome. What we're going to be looking at in this video is we're going to be looking at the techniques being used in advertisements and how you can basically go about responding to them and what sorts of techniques that you'll be finding in ads that you can write about. Okay, so as texts and also as advertisements use text and image-based language, you'll be looking at language techniques involving both. So they use both the visual language and also the language of the text which is being incorporated into the advertisement. And looking at those two things separately, you need to basically find the different techniques that are related to both, how they're set out, how it's layered, how the text creates meaning, and basically talk about them both. Techniques are basically distinctive and they try to set the ad apart from the others. So the techniques that you'll be talking about are not necessarily just different bits of the ad which make it up, but things that make it important, make it special, make it really prominent in the viewer's mind. So if you're looking at this ad, for instance, you could talk about the various visuals of the ad, or you can talk about the centerpiece, the boy with the teddy bear and the car, which it's trying to promote, and it's trying to promote that the car is bigger. All right, those are the things that set it apart, and the techniques that you'll be focusing on are those techniques, the ones that bring those things out, rather than some of the other things that's, you know, normal day in a normal house. Those things aren't quite as important, whereas those images are, and those techniques which are being used to construct those images are. Okay, so the first one you'll often see in advertising is stereotyping. Now, stereotypes and cliches are commonly used because people can neatly identify who the ad is for, and therefore who should be really paying attention to this. Now, this can often be negative, and in the past we've seen ads like the one on screen, which has been widely condemned for the fact that it's quite sexist, and it is. And but it's one of those stereotype cliches that basically the ad industry has thrived on for years, where you can appeal to the typical housewife, so to speak. You can appeal to the busy man who works, and so on. You can basically set up those markets and set up the kinds of people that you want to be talking to. As an advertiser and as someone who wants to sell something or to sell an idea, you want to sell it to the people who are going to be listening to it. So they use a lot of stereotypes and cliches in order to be able to hammer that across. And also ads are very quick mediums. We don't spend a lot of time looking at them. So they want to get their message across very quickly. They don't want to have you going, I don't know what that means, and go, I don't care, and just move on. So they set up some very prominent images, ones that are very distinctive, and ones that are often the meaning, it pretty much speaks for itself. Advertisers use them because they can connect directly to its target audience. In other words, the people who they are aiming their message at. And that's basically the other thing that it's doing as well, is it's essentially saying that we're trying to sell to this group of people, and we're going to show them the poster child for that group of people in order to say that this is exactly for you, we understand you. Now, usually stereotypes and cliches really don't understand people on a deep level, but they don't have to for an ad, because they're just trying to hit the message across that it's for this group. And it doesn't really matter if it understands you or not, because you're somewhat a part of this group, so it applies to you. Okay, a focal point. Now, all ads have a very strong focal point. If you have a look at the ad to my right, you'll see immediately we've got a very strong one in the middle where we've got this image that doesn't belong. And a very famous painting, and then one basically which has a superimposed GPS unit in there. And immediately it sort of it draws our attention to it, makes us really look at it as in what's wrong with this picture, and then to be sucked in by the message of it. So they're arranged so the audience looks at the most important point. In this case, it's the product. We see the device pretty much straight away, even though it's one of the smallest things on the print ad. We can still see it almost straight away because of the fact that it doesn't belong and it stands out. So it's what the ad's trying to communicate, as in a GPS can get you places, and even an army in the early American pioneering days can get where they need to go, because of the fact that they have a GPS unit. Alright, so for instance, most fast food commercials will focus on the food being the dominant image, as in no one cares if it's an ad for McDonald's until they see that it's a big juicy hamburger on the screen, and they go, wow, I might not necessarily like McDonald's, but I certainly could go for one of those. And that's again what they're trying to do. So they've immediately got the product, the thing that they're trying to sell as being the dominant image, trying to make you feel hungry, and to say that to think of their product next time they're feeling hungry. So when they go to the shop and thinking, I'm feeling hungry right about now, they can go, I want to have that burger that I saw on TV last night, or I saw in the paper yesterday that looks really nice. So again, that focal point, that's the thing that people remember. And then they can get led to other things. So in this case, the name of the product is right down the bottom. It's very small because it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to notice what it is, to get the joke, and then to say, oh, it's from this company. Oh, they must be funny because they have a funny ad. And that's basically what these ads are trying to do. So again, it's what those focal points do and what vectors do, but we'll get on to those in a minute. Visuals. Now, visuals dominate basically advertisements because they are a universal form of communication. And basically, this image, you don't have to understand English to know what this is. And that's what basically the visuals, and the reason why visuals are a really strong part of what you're looking at is because they are forms of communication that are the same the world over. As in, there's no word that's different for a visual. So when you get to the language, there's only going to be a certain group of people who can understand your ad. Usually they are the target market, usually they're people who speak that language. But any image is something that's universal and something that can apply to anyone. All right, and they also communicate ideas far more quickly. As in, you don't have to even read them. You can just look at it and go, ooh, yeah, gotcha. They give an immediate impression of what the ad's about. So if you see this on your screen, you immediately know it's an Apple ad. And that's all they have to show you. They don't even have to say their name anymore. Because with that image is so familiar to us that we know immediately, oh, it's Apple. Oh, it's another fabulous new Apple product that everyone's going to buy. And symbols basically such as product or branding are recognizable. So as I said, immediately when you see that, you go immediately, you know what it is. You know who it's selling to. And even this, the old logo, is still recognizable for people because of the fact it looks, first of all, like the new one, but also because of the idea of basically what that ad is, what that company is, what it stands for. And so when you see those sorts of symbols, you basically recognize, first of all, who it's from, but then also your visuals that you'll see ones that are designed to basically give you an immediate impression about what the ad's trying to do, trying to make you familiar with it, trying to, if it's an ad for as I said, for a food product, they're going to have the food somewhere in it. Something that makes you immediately look at it, feel it, and go, yep, I saw that before. And makes it familiar, rather than necessarily having to give you a whole heap of text to be able to do the same thing. Okay, so it's instant communication. It's a snapshot, it's very quick. And that's why a lot of visuals and symbols are used, and then your text is used to sort of support those. Now, language, because this is another important part, because when you look at the language of advertising, they use a variety of different techniques. So first of all, they use puns quite often. They'll use various plays on words to communicate a message. I'm not going to go through any, but basically any kind of play on words which associate their product with an idea, or just simply being clever and humorous. Something that really, again, sort of makes it distinctive and stand out. They use emotional and sensory language. They use language that makes us feel something, whether or not that's hunger or thirst, or even something like I need to change the world sort of thing. Those emotional and sensory statements are things that really make people feel something and connect an emotion, a feeling to whatever it is the message of the ad is trying to deliver. A slogan, something, again, that's very catchy, very simple, sticks in the mind. It may have jargon as well, technical language, as in a lot of ads will use a lot of technical language to sort of say that our product is technically good. That by using, even, it doesn't necessarily have to be aimed at people who are enthusiasts, it can be just aimed at everyone by listing all of these technical things that no one's ever heard of. It means that basically our product is scientific, it's leaps ahead, it's you don't need to know what's in it, but it's very clever stuff. So that's what this jargon is often used for, particularly in beauty products. You'll hear all these miracle formulas and ingredients and things that it's made out of, when usually it's just chemicals. Hyperbole, they often exaggerate. And while they can't make any claims that are basically boast the effectiveness if it's not there. They can make claims that basically are within the realm of basically the imagination. So they basically do a lot of things that help you to sort of picture something and exaggerate. They do exaggerate. And finally, imperatives, as in they are directions. They are almost instructions at times. So if you see "sell now on" is an example of an imperative, as in it's now on, get there quickly. So get there now, sell now on, all those things. It's very imperative in terms of language. All right. Now vectors, I raised this before, and it's the other part. So you've got the vocal point is where you start. The vectors is where you continue to go. So they direct the eyes to basically the key points of the ad and attract interest and the attention of its viewers, basically. And they essentially start you at the focal point, and then they move you around the image, the things that are important. So if it's for the burger, then it will say what the name of the burger is and then where you get it from. That's what the lines are for. Now they're not lines you can see, but they're basically tricks in the layout that basically get you to look in a certain direction, as in everyone automatically goes to the most dominant image, then they'll go to the next one, and then the next one. Whatever basically takes their mind first. It's how we're programmed. It's how we program to look at things. So that sort of intention grabbing is what vectors take advantage of. They're basically, as I said, to make the eyes move around the ad. They start with the most important information, the things that you need to know first. And usually, in fact, very rarely is it the company. It usually is what they're selling first, to make the product itself speak for itself, or even in terms of a charity, they show the problem and then they show last where you go to fix it, because they want you to attach yourself to it before they go, well, it's from this charity. Because when people say, oh, this is a message from this charity, they go, oh God, another charity, they're trying to scam me with my money. Whereas if you show them something that they really do care about, then they stop caring it's a charity, because they start to feel something. They start to feel emotionally vulnerable. They start to feel emotionally connected to the problems and to the issues that a particular group or an individual or a society is facing, and then they'll be more inclined to act. And they usually begin with a message and then lead on to who is sending it. So as I mentioned before, what the message is, as in, you need to buy this burger, and then finally, who's sending it? The burger chain that's selling it. So again, that's what the vectors and the layout is designed to do. So if you look at this ad even, now this one's not necessarily selling us anything, but immediately you've got this giant beak in the middle, and then this idea, show off your brand. So we've got that as two things working together. We've got this giant beak with a glass of a beverage of some sort on it, and then immediately it's show off your brand. So basically it's that image that really does stand out, and then the text that goes next to it. Okay, typography and colors. Now basically this refers to the colors which are used by the advertisement, and then the font of the text that they're using. And basically these are chosen very, very carefully, as in they reflect the brand, and they reflect the brand's interests, and they reflect the messages being told. So if, for instance, it's an ad to stop people smoking, they won't be using Comic Sans, for the obvious reason that Comic Sans is sort of a font that, rather than being annoying, is also one that's a bit cheery, whereas a stop smoking message is one that's quite sinister and is trying to make you feel a little bit anxious. So they use a very sort of a creepy sort of font, something that seems a bit industrial, something that's a bit murky and shady and all the rest. And that makes people go, oh, yeah, it's something that should make me feel like that. So it's chosen all very carefully. A lot of the visuals are chosen very carefully, and people spend a lot of time on it. They're chosen in order to be distinctive as well. As in, for instance, you might often see black and silver being used as symbols for prestige. You may see bright colors being used for children. So if you see an ad for a luxury car, for instance, you won't see lots of bright colors. You'll see a lot of black and silver, because that's trying to promote it as being a prestige brand, one that's like silver and gold. Whereas the bright colors for children are happy. They grab the short attention spans of children and go, basically use that pester power of I want to again attract them. So they're colors which basically help to set the ad apart, what it's trying to do, and who they're trying to talk to. Alright, so in summary, you should be looking for, first of all, various language techniques which are being used by ads and by advertisers, and what those language techniques are doing. You need to look at the visuals that go with them. And finally, you need to look at the layout, how they're both put together. And those things together, and basically we refer to them separately here, but your job is then to bring them all together at the end and say how effectively they work, and look at things like vectors and focal points in terms of the layout to basically dictate how the ad is structured, how it's organized, and how it gets people to look around it and communicate with it. To basically have a conversation with it, which is what all ads are trying to do. But otherwise, that's it for techniques of advertising. So until next time, I'll see you later.